Hello, my name is Diane Trout, and this is my PowerPoint presentation on technology management for iPads, cell phones, and computers. So first of all, you have technology in your classroom. Now what do? Well, the best thing I suggest is downloading the 2 Eyes and 2 Feet app first. Never heard of it? Well, I came across this joke I thought it was pretty funny. The 2 Eye and the 2 Feet app are your 2 eyes and your 2 feet, and it's not actually something you download, but it is something you do. You walk around the classroom and you observe. You make sure students are on task and following instructions, and that's the best thing you can do when you have technology in the room. Don't go sit behind your desk. Don't leave the room. Use your 2 Eyes and 2 Feet app all the time. All right. So, with iPads, one great thing to do with iPads is to track app usage to find out which apps are most used and most effective. There's apps that you can download to track the apps. So that's one good thing about iPads. Another thing that I found that is really effective, I think, would be the red, yellow, and green system. If you use that in the classroom, students will understand how important it is what you are teaching them. Now, when you use the red, yellow, and green system, you don't always want to have it on red, and you don't always want to have it on green. You want to make sure you switch it up for what's appropriate. So if you have your stoplight or your cone or whatever you're going to utilize on red, that means what I'm about to tell you is important. Focus and place your iPad face down. No apps allowed. If you're on yellow, this means that the student's task, need 2 to 3 apps to accomplish. Example, having their ebook and their note-taking apps open. This can be in any moment used, and no social media or games are allowed in yellow. But they may, of course, use the other apps as long as they're actually using them. And in green, an example of green is after you finish this quiz, you may use any app until everybody's done, including social media or games. So, whichever you can make modifications to this in your classroom, how you want it used. But I thought that was a really good idea, and I will definitely use that in my classroom. Okay, another good practice is don't just use content apps. Use apps that allow students create, such as EduCreations, Soccerdiv, and VoiceThread. We've used EduCreations and VoiceThread in our classes. I know I've seen some of the students use Soccerdiv in their classrooms when I've been doing my field experience, and they really, really enjoy using these apps. You think that games are just there to learn, they also need to be there to allow students to be creative. So if you download a math-only app, that's fine, but you need to make sure you have apps that allow them to be creative because students can be very creative. Okay, another thing with iPads is be informed how to use iPads in the classroom through professional development. One thing about technology is always changing, always updating, so you want to make sure you attend professional developments that give you suggestions on how to use iPads. It's also a good idea to use short video tutorials on how to use different apps. You can create videos to show students how to use apps. You can watch videos as a teacher on how to use apps. You may know how to use an app, but you may not know how to use all the features of an app. So short video tutorials on apps are a great idea. Okay, develop and teach students procedures for beginning and ending day storage of iPads. Students need to understand that they have their own iPad. They need to know how to plug it in properly. They need to know how to disconnect it properly on the cart or whatever method of storage. I think what I've seen mostly is a cart that has plugs for all of them. So it's not just everybody come into the classroom in the morning, rush to the cart. There needs to be some order at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day how to get your iPad out. And this is something the teacher needs to develop and teach students. Another thing that's great with iPads is scanning QR codes. As you can see in this picture, this was actually a third grade class, and he was scanning the QR codes to learn about the Civil War. They were doing some research about the Civil War, so um, they were getting their information from the QR code that the teacher had created, and they really enjoyed scanning those QR codes. Also, with iPads, include the responsible use policy or acceptable use policy as a PDF in the iBooks app on the iPad so students and teachers can readily access it. That way, if there's any question about what they should be using or doing, the parents can read it, the teachers can read it, and the students can read it. So you want to make sure that's available for everybody, especially the students. All right, I found this. It was pretty interesting. It's an evaluation rubric for iPad apps. And as you can see, there's different criteria for different apps. 4 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And one thing I thought was informational was the feedback and the differentiation domains. On level 4, it says app offers complete flexibility to alter settings and to meet student needs. In such diverse classrooms, you need apps that can be diverse, that can be flexible. You don't want everybody doing the same thing all the time. So I really like this rubric on how to evaluate apps. Okay, next are computers. With computers, you need to make sure you set a laptop policy and communicate it to all students. That way they know what's expected out of them. And it's also a good idea to communicate it to parents too. I know with Power Up in Athens City Schools, the parents and the students have to go to a meeting before they are even issued their laptop. And it's about a 1-hour meeting, and they discuss acceptable use of the laptop. They have to sign a contract. They have to understand that if, what happens when their laptops get lost, what happens if they lose their power cord. It is all set in a document that the parents and the students have to read and sign so they know what is expected out of them. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Computers, it's a good idea to use computers to use a flipped classroom approach. I think students would really like that. I hope to do that in my classroom one day. But computers are really good at using the flipped classroom. iPads and cell phones are too, but I think computers are the best outlet to use the flipped classroom approach. All right, next, you need to identify a laptop-free zone in class. You don't want laptops all around the room. If they're in groups on the floors, you don't want them everywhere. So what you're going to do is you're going to create an area and designate it for no laptops. And that can be kind of like a reading area or wherever you as a teacher decide that you want it. So make sure you set a laptop zone free area. Okay, you also need to determine how well the classroom supports laptop use. If your school's infrastructure is not set up to handle everybody in the school or everybody in the classroom having a laptop and being on the internet at the same time, then maybe laptops aren't the best use in your school. Because what's the point of having computers if the students aren't allowed to get on the internet, or if the internet's always crashing? You need to make sure you have those infrastructures in place before you use computers. Okay, you also want to make sure that laptops are used to increase peer interactivity, not to isolate students. So many people think, oh man, we're getting laptops, that means I don't have to talk to anybody. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Not only are your students going to talk to each other, they're going to start collaborating with people across the world. And that's one of the great things about technology is you can get different perspectives from around the world. So the students will definitely not be isolated, but it's up to the teacher to facilitate the proper use of the laptop or computer sharing and making sure it's interactive. You also want to make sure that you use laptops to reflect and generate ideas. Students could write a paper, turn it into you, and then after they turn it into you, you can write sticky notes in their Word document, and they can go back and fix it. And that's an easy way for students to reflect. An interesting thing too is to get students starting on programming at an early age. That would help generate ideas. They can also look stuff up on the internet and help you come up with ideas for things they want to learn about. If you know that you're going to be studying the Civil War this year, you could ask the students to research some ideas on how they might want to learn about the Civil War, some projects they might want to do. So that way they can reflect and come up with their own ideas. All right, computers should have, uh, the objectives should have laptop use integrated into the lesson plan. You don't want to just do it on the fly. You want to make sure you plan how you're going to use the laptops in your lesson plan. Cell phones. Cell phones are very common amongst fifth grade, sixth grade, and not so much in the elementary school. There's a few that have them in elementary schools, but in the higher grades, secondary grades, cell phones are pretty common. So one thing that students can do is utilize video recording for lessons. If they're struggling with math and they have a cell phone, offer them, hey, do you want to record me teaching this lesson so when you go home and do your homework, you can watch it and hopefully help you with your homework. Another way you can use cell phones is you can poll the class instantly. There's a website and an app called Poll Everywhere, and this is a picture of how Poll Everywhere works. You ask a question, the audience answers using their phone, Twitter, or a web browser, and the responses are displayed live on PowerPoint, Keynote, or on the web. So if you're asking the students a question in class, a multiple choice question, A, B, C, or D, you get instant feedback. It's anonymous, so you don't know, the students won't know, oh, so-and-so doesn't know the answer, I'm going to laugh at them. It takes away that embarrassing factor of not knowing the answers in school. So I know a lot of students struggle to raise their hand because they don't want to get made fun of. Using polls on cell phones takes away that, and I think that's a great thing. Another thing cell phones can do are text reminder apps. One, for example, is Remind 101. Remind 101, the teacher can send out a text message reminding students of a test for tomorrow. You can remind parents of a PTO meeting. We actually use this for Cub Scouts, and a great way, one of the great things about this is the teacher emails that or texts out, and it's non-responsive. So if you just want to remind the students, hey, we have a test tomorrow, make sure you study. You won't be getting 30 texts back saying, okay, okay, okay. It's just kind of a reminder, like a reminder on your phone when you set it on your calendar. So we've used this in Cub Scouts, reminding people about sign-ups or events, and it's worked excellent. It's a great form of communication. Cell phones can also scan QR codes. You can use this to uncover your day's lesson or homework, like in the video in the module. I thought that was a great idea. Students come in the morning, get their cell phones out, scan their QR code, and they know what their morning work is. You also want to make sure to ask students to set their phones to silent when entering the classroom. They'll still be able to use it, but just make sure it's silent. That way, if they do happen to get a text, because you know someone will, even though they're not supposed to, someone will. You don't want all that dinging going off or ringtones going off. So just ask them kindly to set their phones to silent when entering the classroom. Another thing I found that was pretty neat, it said if at any time a teacher feels that students are not using cell phones for classwork, they will be asked to place cell phones in the bin at the front of the room with a post-it indicating their name and class, and the phone will be returned at the end of the day. Most kids don't want their phones taken away, so I think that would be a good practice to put into place to make sure that students do what they're supposed to and do what's right and keep on task. In closing, be open to any classroom modifications with any of these technologies. Technology is always changing, it's always updating, so a lot of times students have really good ideas. We don't need to look at students as below us. We don't need to look at them not knowing anything with these technologies, because for a lot of people, a lot of students know more about this than adults do. For example, my mom needed to update her iOS system on her iPhone, and she didn't know how to do it. And my 9-year-old took it from her and updated her iOS system the other night, and she didn't know how to do it. So that's one thing about students teaching adults. So just always be open. Don't be afraid of technology. You have to have some of these practices implemented, and things will go pretty well for you. Thank you so much.